So earlier this week, over the Easter weekend, Biden, quote unquote, signs a measure ending the COVID-19 national emergency. Now, the public health emergency will continue to commence and will terminate on May 11th, but the pandemic national emergency is hereby terminated. And so this means that people don't have to, wear masks. They don't have to, there's no requirement for the vaccination. The restrictions for schools and business operations. There's no requirement for medicines, tests in response to cases of COVID-19. So all the stuff that obviously we've just had a headache going through over the last couple of years, that has officially been stopped. And now I want to talk about a couple of things. Now, over the last couple of years, many of us, we have had our own individual journey in terms of growing to being awakened to what's really going on. And so I know many of you watching, you're more in the advanced levels. And so the normie population, right, the average person is beginning to see the very beginnings of what this whole thing was about. And so I want to touch on it at sort of each level. If you're in the first level, right, you will recognize, even as a believer, you would recognize that whether it is a precursor to some kind of control system like the mark of the beast, however you want to see it, you would obviously see the demonic influence it has had in the spiritual realm in terms of ushering in something, right? Ushering in people begging to get locked up and isolated 6 feet apart and to take a shot, take some medicine. Please, give it to me. That kind of 1-2 punch was very obvious. You bring in some kind of pandemic, you bring in some kind of, if you want to say a bioweapon, if you want to say it's some naturally occurring thing. So the way you do and introduce something, especially if you're going to vaccinate everybody, if you want a chip for everybody to take, you literally see it as a 1-2 punch. You bring in something and everybody begs for it, and then you usher that in. So that much people have been awakened to. Now, if you go to the next levels, then you have to start thinking about what certain doctors have been saying, certain people have been saying in terms of what is true, what isn't. All of these hotly debated topics that we've all seen, right, over the last couple of years, everything from masks, do they work, are they effective, cloth masks, N95, CDC, everybody going back and forth. You got the 6 feet apart. Are some of these based on science? Is it just arbitrary? What was really the intent behind it? Was it for our good or not? You had the hospital stuff, everything from numbers, double counting deaths, attributing other deaths to, COVID and stuff like that. Then you had all the respirator stuff, the ventilator stuff, the remdesivir, pumping people, and then the claims and all that stuff, right? And so the myocarditis, the vaccines, and man, we can open up a can of worms there. Vaccines, the booster shots, people, pilots, all these people collapsing and all that, right? So you have that, you have ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, you've had, alternative medicines and supplements, zinc, vitamin D. So all these things, right? So these are trigger words in some sense. You have doctors hotly debated on one side and the other people saying other stuff, people saying it's safe and effective. And so if you've been through that and you've graduated, right? And and you've discerned, you've asked the Lord what really is going on, then you've graduated from that. I'm not going to make any assertions, right? It'll get me banned and censored and all that. But if you've been following me, you know my stance on these things. But the point is that if you've wrestled with these things, which is the grassroots stuff, right? Medicine, what works, what doesn't. They're telling you this, they're telling you that, stay indoors and all that stuff, right? So if you've graduated from that and you truly found out, okay, I know what works, what doesn't. I know what was propaganda, what was for profiting because of the industry, these guys, the motivators, then you've graduated to the next level. And even some people are still at this level. They're still going to take booster shots every couple of months or a year, or whatever it is. They're gonna just be all gung-ho about listening to the mainstream, the narrative, and they're just, they got their Band-Aid patch on and just saying, go get vaccinated and all that stuff, right? So there's still gonna be people in that camp. But if you've graduated even from that, then it gets more difficult, right? It gets into the bleeding edge of, okay, that's, I don't want to say far-fetched, but it's harder to grasp. And so this is where I want to also focus a little bit, which is that there's a bigger narrative and war going on. And a lot of the questions that people have been asking over the last couple of years, and rightly so, is why are the white hats allowing certain things like this to happen? Why did Trump promote the vaccines? How could you rectify, all this stuff? But you got to remember that everything that's going on is a war in that somebody played a move, and you have to play within the sandbox, within the environment that was given to them. And so in some sense, it's a lesser of two evils, right? The same thing goes for, why don't we just arrest everybody as soon as Trump was president? There were certain things that had to happen, which, sadly, at the cost of, people's livelihoods and the economic downturn and all this stuff. All of this has been played, in some sense, orchestrated and allowed for a reason. And so this is where I want to talk about my title of the video, which is that Trump, he said a long time ago that, and a lot of people will remember this, that it will end, right? So COVID will end by Easter, but he never said which Easter. So coincidentally, literally to the day, or at least implemented on the next business day, this happens. And so I'm here to say, and again, I'm not saying that I know the complete story, but people knew the plan, right? So meaning that if the white hats, the good guys, they knew the plan, then they, in some sense, allowed that to happen so that they can, destroy themselves and watch them self-destruct and then ride on that and then use that to sort of corner people. And again, I'm not here to be claiming to be a strategist on this 5D, warfare or whatever it is, fifth dimensional warfare. But I'm saying that it's not that easy just to come out there and just say, hey, stop, time out, let's stop everything. But rather, for the sake of the greater good and awakening people and bringing the deep state or the, whoever the globalists down a certain path. And all these things have happened for a reason. And then you could even go as far as saying Biden, right, being controlled. Everybody knows. You look at Biden, he's controlled in some way. But it's the question of, is it Obama in the basement? Or is it the military? He's getting orders from somebody, but then the military having the ultimate say, because certain things are questionable. Why would he allow certain quote unquote executive orders? And again, we can talk about two presidents, we can talk about the corporation, we can talk about what's really powerful or what's really valid in the legal sense or not because of the state that we are in and what it's dissolved. Again, this is more bleeding edge and almost fringe type stuff in terms of you have to elevate to that level to have that be digestible for you. But I want to stay a little bit behind that. And that is that if you look at what's going on, right, everything that's happened in the last couple of years, some for the sake of him being an actor in this whole movie, being used, right, controlled, being led down a certain path, being told what to say for a reason, right? And so all this is playing out to some degree because there's a bigger objective, rooting out, right, the evil, looking for the double agents, allowing people to see for themselves, present it to them. You can't just tell them, you have to show them. So all this stuff is happening for a reason. And so I'm saying this because COVID, as more time passes, you look back on that and you evaluate on your own and say, man, I was worked up for nothing. I was in fear of nothing. Why did I close my church down? Why did I end up doing this? So in some sense, at the individual grassroots level, like I've said before, in terms of Satan versus God and this movement of what he's going to do for potentially the end times, mark of the beast stuff, how that could be possible, all the way down as you upgrade to other things. Next time, when they tell me to get in my house and to do this, to violate my freedoms, the Constitution, when they tell me to eat this or take this, inject this, what are you going to do, right? Are you going to act in fear? Are you going to act because of peer pressure? Because they've threatened you to be fired from your job. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your benefits, whatever it is, right? So what is it that you're going to do next time? And so this experience, right? Just like when you go through any experience, you learn, you grow thick skin from it. And then next time you tell yourself, okay, I went through it. It's not my first rodeo. So now I can respond in a more mature way. So to each your own, everybody is upgraded to the next level. And so I'm saying that as much as I'm tackling every single layer, the highest layer in terms of this whole COVID thing, whether you want to say it's manufactured, made, and we know that now, at least. I can declare that. Coming from Wuhan, coming from a lab, all this stuff. This being a bioweapon on the world, how are you going to take this and incorporate that into your world paradigm, which is to say that somebody planned this? You know, when you look at Fauci, Bill Gates, all this stuff, and all the precursors that led up to this years ago, watch out in the future. We're going to have, you know, a pandemic and blah, blah, blah. And you can go look up these videos, right? So you stitch all that together and say, okay, so the good guys, the bad guys, they all had a plan. They knew it. And how do you work within this sandbox, if you will? And so this is what has happened over the last couple of years. Trump, the White Hats, these guys knew it was going to be the next couple of years. It's going to be tough. But we also want to make sure that we communicate that we are in control. And so in some sense, you see the Biden thing, quote unquote, signing off on ending it. Somebody else behind the scenes, the military, these guys, they have the hand, the invisible hand, in a good way. They have their hand in this, and they're guiding these guys down a path, whether it's to trap the enemy or because they have actual control over the puppet, over this theatrical, you know, acting performance that's happening right now for the sake of society, for the sake of the greater good, waking you up and making sure that we are moving on from this system that we've been trapped in, the rich getting richer, this whole monetary, fiscal, and I'm going to bring in finance stuff now, right? But it's basically this idea of control and trying to get you to submit in a certain way by threatening you, by putting all this fear, mongering, all that on you. And so if anything, realize whatever level you are at, whatever state of awakeness you are at, realize that you can upgrade and you can grow to the next level. But if you haven't graduated from a certain level, if you're still sitting there and you're just like, no, ivermectin, hydroxy, oh no, there's no way myocarditis, no, nobody has died from the vaccine yet and all that. So if you're still sitting there with that mentality and you're still wearing your mask going out, then I'm sorry, it's going to be hard for you to realize the greater, bigger things, the big picture things of what is really going on. So again, I've said a lot in some sense, but I also want to leave it a little bit open-ended so that you could learn, you could go, you could figure out, and if the Lord is opening some doors for you so that you can research, you can discern, then so be it. Because this is a journey to each our own for which we are elevating, graduating, and moving forward so that we can have better discernment. We can open our eyes to everything that's going on. And so this is what I mean by everything is within this discussion of COVID. It's very complicated. It's a very advanced level of discernment and trying to sift through everything. And so point is that God is in control, right? God is giving us the willpower, the discernment, the Holy Spirit to move us through this. So whether it's a faith, if it was a faith thing for you, right? Getting through all of this, living through all this, it was a faith journey for you, then so be it. If it's a knowledge journey for you, a wisdom and an understanding journey for you, then so be it. That's good. If it was a big picture journey for you to connect the dots on who the players are on this board, then so be it. To each our own, we are graduating, we are elevating, and this is a good time for all of us. So COVID, guys, more is to come. People will choose to believe what they want to believe, but the truth will come out and you will see it happening. So it's a good time. Things are ending. And if anything, go out, right? Go out. There's no restrictions here. Just do and travel, whatever it is you want to do, go out and do it. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.